Welcome to the Mothman in the Bible Belt podcast with your host, Buck Fantastic.
Girl Scout cookies.
Homelessness, poverty, drug addiction, police brutality, and lack of opportunity are 5 issues that fall on deaf ears in West Virginia. West Virginians love complaining about these things, yet have a habit of voting for policymakers that shove these issues to the back burner while environmental deregulation and divisive social issues take precedence. In Charleston, West Virginia, a slew of candidates are running for Charleston City Council, and an all-hype mayor, Amy Goodwin, is getting primaried. On this episode of the Mothman in the Bible Belt podcast, I have activist turned Charleston mayoral candidate, Martec Washington. He's going to discuss his campaign and vision for Charleston. Join me, your host, Buck Fantastic, for another exciting episode of the Mothman in the Bible Belt podcast, because being an informed voter makes you less of a moron. Before we dive into my interview with Martec Washington, I wanted to talk about 2 bills the Charleston City Council passed last year. The first bill, Bill number 7893, makes it a misdemeanor crime for anyone operating an unauthorized harm reduction program in Charleston. The penalty is $500 to $1,000. This bill was passed shortly after the West Virginia legislature required all harm reduction programs to be licensed by the West Virginia Bureau for Public Health. Every member serving on the Charleston City Council at that time, excluding longtime Councilman Robert Sheets, voted for the bill. This includes Rise Up West Virginia endorsed councilwomen Caitlin Cook, Deanna McKinney, and Jennifer Farr. Farr and McKinney slapped their names on the bill. Rise Up West Virginia also endorsed Charleston Mayor Amy Goodwin. HIV rates among IV users are up in Kanawha County. Mayor Goodwin claims she supported harm reduction and the Kanawha-Charleston Health Department reinstating its harm reduction program while campaigning for mayor, yet she devolved on the matter once elected. She also made numerous promises to open warming stations for the homeless living on the street once the weather was predicted to dip below 15 degrees with wind chill. On several occasions the past 3 years, when the weather dipped to 15 degrees, no warming station opened. Mayor Goodwin also signed on to a joint statement from Zionist political organization, the American Jewish Committee, condemning anti-Semitism. This organization equates anti-Semitism to criticizing the government of Israel over its human rights abuses of Palestinians. Huntington Mayor Steve Williams and Morgantown Mayor Ron Dulaney Jr. also signed on to the statement. I also want to remind Charleston voters, Mayor Goodwin has yet to have the Charleston Police Department to extradite her former mayoral campaign worker and the city's former community relations coordinator, Alexander Gallo, back to New Jersey and Pennsylvania for various crimes she's been accused of. WCHS reported in February of 2020 that Gallo has an open criminal case in New Jersey and an active bench warrant in Pennsylvania for failure to appear on charges that include resisting arrest and drug possession. Another bill I want to discuss is Charleston's conversion therapy ban for minors. Conversion therapy is used primarily by faith-based organizations, especially churches, to turn homosexual and bisexual people straight and to keep transgender persons from living their truth. Out lesbian councilwoman Caitlin Cook advocated for an amendment to Bill number 7919 that exempts religious clergy from the ban. Religious clergy are the main practitioners of this insane, psychologically torturous practice. I lost a friend to suicide in 2017. He got his ex-gay on before I met him at the Bible Center Church in Charleston. There's a link still on the church's website encouraging their cult to seek out various resources to degayify themselves. Here's the exact wording of Caitlin Cook's amendment. This prohibition does not apply to a clergy member or religious counselor who is acting in a pastoral or religious capacity and not in the capacity of a medical or mental health professional. In other words, this bill has no teeth, and more young people will likely attempt suicide thanks to Councilwoman Cook's amendment. Charleston City Council members Brent Burton, Janine Fagery, Bobby Haas, Pat Jones, Bruce King, Chuck Overstreet, Courtney Persinger, Shannon Snodgrass, and Regenerate West Virginia endorsed Councilman Adam Knopf voted against the bill as a whole. The ACLU of West Virginia and Fairness West Virginia tout the passage of this bill as the strongest in the country. It exempts the main practitioners. I contacted Lambda Legal shortly after the passage of the conversion therapy ban, and a rep stated that religious clergy don't have to be exempt from the conversion therapy ban. Don't get me wrong, Charleston needs a ban on conversion therapy. The entire United States needs a ban on conversion therapy. The ban should be for minors and adults, and there should be no exemptions whatsoever for anyone practicing it, especially religious clergy. Let's look at some of the people running for Charleston City Council. Democrat Corey Zinn of Create West Virginia is running for an at-large city council seat. I know him and have nothing negative to say about him. He's very forward-thinking. Democrat and Miss Groovy's Jenny Burns is running for an at-large seat. I saw her, Linda Sodaro, and Nancy Ward of the state capitol speaking to legislators about the proposed tank law shortly after the Freedom Industries chemical spill in 2014. Jenny's husband is very pleasant. Ward 10 Councilwoman Democrat Keely Steele is being primaried by Chelsea Stillhammer. Steele took advantage of the Charleston Small Business Investment Grant last year. The West Virginia Ethics Commission said it was okay. The Ethics Commission also said it was okay for Evan Jenkins, who recently resigned from the West Virginia Supreme Court, to speak on behalf of Allegheny Wood Products at a public hearing in favor of House Bill 4394. House Bill 4394 would stop lawsuits against reckless employers that knowingly refuse to take necessary safety precautions to protect workers from injury or death. Ward 18 Councilman Bobby Brown, a Democrat, is getting some competition from two-time West Virginia House of Delegates candidate James Elam. Republican Pam Burka is also running for the seat. When Elam ran both times for the House of Delegates, he ran on a progressive platform. Democratic hairdresser and drag legend Bridget Nichols, aka Anthony Gerald, is primarying recently appointed City Councilman Larry Moore in the 4th Ward. Attorney and energy-efficient West Virginia Policy Director Emmett Pecker is running for the at-large City Council seat he was appointed to by Mayor Goodwin following John Kennedy Bailey's sudden death last September. Pecker was involved in the so-called Progressive Regenerate West Virginia PAC a few years back. That PAC endorsed numerous candidates with crappy voting records on the environment, civil liberties, and workplace safety. I called out Mr. Pecker.
That's Emmett Pepper, Buck.
I called out Mr. Pepper's involvement in that PAC and other sketchy groups and activists a few years back, and he tweeted that I should leave the state. On top of that, I've seen him refer to several progressive voters as purists on social media for wanting their elected officials to adhere to a bold progressive platform. If Mr. Pepper doesn't want you holding his feet to the fire over his past involvement in questionable political and activist organizations, what makes anyone think he'll allow you to hold him accountable for his votes and actions should he wind up elected to the Charleston City Council and get stuck there for years? In 2018, Emmett Pepper and West Virginia Can't Wait Stephen Smith wrote an op-ed published in the Charleston Gazette-Mail about Charleston's homeless. In the 7 months I was involved in the world of homeless services, I never once saw either politician show up to any Charleston Homeless Task Force meeting or any Canal Valley Collective meeting. Just saying. Moving on from trash to the goods, Martec Washington is primarying Democrat Amy Goodwin for mayor of Charleston, West Virginia. He's 33 and full of ideas about how to move Charleston in a more positive direction and fix a ton of social injustices. According to his website, Washington wants to address mental health, homelessness, and police reform. Let's hear from the man himself and see what he has in store for the people of Charleston should he wind up mayor. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living and how long you've been in Charleston.
Well, I'm Martec Washington. I'm 33. I've been here just about my entire life. I lived in Dunbar for about 5 years. But other than that, I've been in Charleston my whole life. My mom still lives in the house I grew up in, across the street from where I live now. Um, I don't even know how to explain what I've been doing since I was a kid. I've just been out in the community trying to make Charleston as good as it can be. From when I was a kid, we didn't have a playground, so I advocated for a playground for our community. Um, to when I went to Capitol, I noticed gun violence was happening a lot, so I was inside of a program. We worked with the Department of Justice. I did a hard crime for gun crime campaign. I'm just I'm just your average Charleston person, I guess.
What sets you apart from current Mayor Amy Goodwin?
The things that set me and Amy apart um, are probably our lifestyles, and I don't mean that like in a money sense or a drive a fancy car or walk type of sense. I've been with all levels of people in the city. I've worked in all types of different places, and I know how hard people work, and I know what people are going through, and I see why people are leaving our area. Amy, I think she understands it, but she doesn't get it that Charleston's not working for everyone. The West Side, the East End, they've been a little bit forgotten. Downtown has been a big thing for Amy, and I'll even say for our previous mayor. I, I don't think she understands that small businesses need help. People like you and me need help. I mean, when there are things like potholes and we catch a flat tire, nobody has time to really file a claim with the city. We don't have lawyers on deck. So I don't. I think that's what sets me apart from her is I'm an average everyday Charleston person, and she's on a little bit more of an elitist level.
What experience do you have that remotely relates to the position of mayor?
I live here. Navigating Charleston, period, surviving, thriving is hard to do. And I'm 33 and I'm still here and I'm doing it.
What's your platform?
My platform is to make Charleston safer and to make Charleston work for everyone. And the real big thing about our platform is that we're going to launch Charleston into the 21st century. We're no longer going to be able to say that Charleston's 10 years behind the rest of the country. Charleston's going to be first in a lot of ways.
How so?
So we're going to revitalize the mall. If that means that we're going to have to spend money moving the movie theater over there, I mean, we're going to have to do it. Everybody wants to keep the mall. So we're going to do that. I'm going to sit down with the mall owners and figure out if it's tangible for them to lower the rates that they have in there right now because it's a little bit skyrockety. Like the lease prices are going up, not down, and the mall is not doing very well, so it makes no sense. For the west side, we're going to add some playgrounds, some green spaces. The east end, we're going to get a grocery store. I want to see about working with citizens to see if we can't make a co-op laundromat in the area, all the areas of Charleston, because there's only one in Canal City, and there's tons of apartments in places that don't have that. I'm going to revitalize the police department. Their budget gets in, their budget is half of what we get as a city, and they're not working for us; they're working against us. So, under a Washington administration, the police department will really be a part of the community to serve and protect. You won't be afraid of the badge anymore. That's for certain.
What's your thoughts about regulating commercial real estate?
I mean, to a certain extent, I understand it, but I don't think that would be a good fit for Charleston as of where we're at right now. It would still give the bigger guy the upper hand. And I don't think that's what we want. Um, I think there's different areas that should cost different amounts. And there's different places that go to different areas because they're in those demographics. So I don't think that would really work for Charleston right now.
How will you pay for your platform ideas?
Well, we're going to change some of the things that are going on in the budget with the police department. And most of the things that I'm going to do, there's resources available. We're just going to make them all partner together at a city level. We have Covenant House, we have PAC, we have all of these different places that are trying to help even just people in rehab. Okay, but we're arresting them and putting them in jail, which actually costs the city money. If we don't do that and we get these people to the Covenant House or Sojourners or wherever they have to go, that's saving us money. And that's money we can use. But I'm also going to find a way to legalize weed so that the city can make a substantial amount of money to pay for things.
Flat out recreational?
Uh, Something to what, like, similar to what they have in Colorado,
Okay.
to where the city's making money.
Is your campaign going to accept corporate money?
I don't think there's any corporations that are going to sponsor me.
You never
Um,
know.
I think, I mean, I haven't received a corporation donation. I can't say that I will stop it because ours is on Cash App and PayPal. But if it's from somebody who I know that's not going to help the city or help, period, we're not taking their money.
What are you going to do about poverty and the limited, good paying jobs that persist in the city of Charleston?
So, what I plan to do is bring in a food bank. Um, I plan to work with the food bank to help some of the food insecure areas that we have in the city. When we go to the mall and it's revitalized, those are going to be jobs. And then what was the third thing you asked me? I think there was three questions in there.
Well, two questions. What are you going to do about limited, good paying jobs that we have in Charleston?
Well, if I could make an ordinance where $15 an hour was it, that would be it.
Amen.
Um, we can't force companies at a city level to raise wages, but I do plan on raising the city's minimum wage to $15. So
Okay.
that because some people are city workers and they are in they're a low earner. You know what I mean?
They're
They're
making
still
$10
living
and
in poverty.
$11.
You know what I'm saying? That's still poverty. To really make it
Yep.
in West Virginia as a person with even like three people, I think you got to make like $21. So we can do 15 at the city level as a bare minimum. Even if as the mayor, would have to take a pay cut, I would not mind.
How would you address homelessness?
First things first, we got to stop labeling people as homeless and degrading people. That's something that bothers me. A lot of our politicians just say homeless, and they don't understand that those are people that are struggling. So I'm going to make sure that homeless people count because they still should have a say in what's going on. You know what I'm saying? They're still struggling on our city streets, on our city streets. So you should care about them. But we're going to create a cares and a crisis unit that will do nothing but partner along with the police department. This will come out of the police department's budget, but it'll help people get up off of their feet, like get them to resources, get them to what they need. And then I plan on building like a little tiny town, like somewhere, I don't know where we can build it, but a little tiny town that will house a whole bunch of resources for homeless people, and they can live and stay for 3 to 6 weeks until they can get into a transition home or into a shelter or to wherever they need to go so that they can get on their own 2 feet. I'm talking, they should provide job care, all types of things.
According to the National Homeless Law Center's 2015 survey, 23 cities in the states of Connecticut and Vermont have policies mandating that all homeless shelters open their doors to sanctioned homeless folks when the weather gets frigid outside. Do you think such a policy would be good for Charleston homeless shelters after Patricia Galloway froze to death within a few feet from Sojourner's homeless shelter in 2019?
Under a Washington administration, that will not need to happen because we have community centers, right? I'm going to revitalize the way that we use our community centers. If you're homeless and you need a shower, we have showers there. I want to add a couple washers and dryers at some of our community centers for people to use as well. Um, when it's cold, the community centers will all be open. There shouldn't be a place in Charleston that you cannot go when it's freezing cold outside.
What are your thoughts on Mayor Goodwin not opening warming stations when the weather dipped below 15 degrees here lately?
I think it was a misstep in the administration, and I don't think it'll happen again. And it shouldn't happen again. I I saw that and I thought to myself, somebody didn't make a phone call, some email didn't go out because we all knew it was going to be cold. So I would hope it was a misstep within her administration.
What's the solution to the city's drug crisis?
Resources, and we need to open up rehabs in every area of Charleston. Um, re- Recently, South Hills did not want a rehab a facility built in their area, and I thought to myself, why wouldn't you want the people that are in need in this area to have a place to go? And so I'm going to make sure that rehabs are available across the city, but I'm going to also make sure that we have programs and ways to make sure that people get jobs. Because if you have something that you have to fight for, it keeps you off of drugs a little bit more. From what I'm hearing from people that I've been talking to,
Do
as
you
long as they
think?
have something, go ahead.
No, you continue. Continue before.
As long as they have something worth fighting for, and you know what I'm saying, it's just not a quick buck to where they can go do something. Where you give them a little bit of responsibility, they work at it and they get out of it. I've had several friends who've gone through rehab programs. One who had a baby and is happily married, and I couldn't be more happy for her. But all it took was for her to see that she couldn't do it. She couldn't do drugs and still be the person that she wanted to be and needed to be.
Do you think poverty is fueling our drug epidemic?
Yes. Yes. When you don't have anything to, like I was just saying, people, when you're at your lowest of your low, you're going to turn to something that's going to get you high, and that's 9 times out of 10 a drug.
Last year, after the West Virginia legislature passed a law mandating that all harm reduction programs be licensed by the West Virginia Bureau for Public Health, the city of Charleston added a criminal penalty for operating an unauthorized harm reduction program. You can be charged with a misdemeanor and also be fined $500 to $1,000. What's your thoughts on the city's law, and will you move to repeal it if you get elected to the office of mayor?
I'm here for repealing it because it was out of spite. But what I will say is harm reduction has to be dealt with. And it needs to start not at a city level. It needs to start in a community level. That is something that differs from me in this administration. I'm a people person. I'm out here with these people going through these problems. If there's nowhere for somebody to get a needle, now they're going to steal. You can't just turn a blind eye to people that need help. And that's why that ordinance was passed or the law was passed and the fine was implemented, was out of spite. And with harm reduction with me, it's going to include, gun violence, because that's happening awfully a lot in our area. But harm reduction has to be dealt with at a neighborhood level. I mean seriously, at a neighborhood level, because you got to see what the people want. And I'm not going to say all of Charleston doesn't want harm reduction, because all of Charleston needs and wants harm reduction. But we have to watch what we're doing and not stepping on the community's toes while we're out here trying to save lives.
Do you support the needs-based harm reduction programs or the one-for-one?
I'm more of a one for one type of person, simply because I want you to come back. Because the more you see me, the more chances I have to get you out of what you're doing. Um, but I understand the need for a needs based. I understand why they have to give them a couple more. Like I fully understand it. But I'm more of a one for one type of person, because I would prefer for you to come back so that we can help you.
What's the solution to the needle litter?
I mean, the same thing that's the solution to trash outside. Putting up trash cans. If we need to have a vehicle or some type of bin set up like SOAR is doing for people to put their needles in. Most people get stuck. It's the trash man. Do you know what they get stuck off of? Diabetic needles. Not needles people use, diabetic needles. So we just have to make sure that we have adequate equipment for people to dispose of things in, trash or needles.
Charleston Mayor Amy Goodwin pledged to move on use of force reforms after the Frida Gilmore beatdown by two Charleston police officers. She hasn't done much of anything. How will you deal with use of force and police brutality as mayor?
Oof. I just watched that video the other day when she said she got it. She says she gets it. More needs to be done. Um, I don't even know how to explain. Police officers won't have the opportunity to do that in a Washington administration. I'm all here for use of force. I understand when an officer has to use a taser or a gun. I get it. They're out here putting their life on the line. I completely understand that. But sometimes our officers do things bad, and they should be reprimanded for that. I will make sure that they are reprimanded. We are creating a citizens. We are going to try to work with the state to create a citizens review board, and then I'm going. The police is going to have so much training. They're going to have to get out of their vehicles. They're going to have to know the community. I mean, there's just it's going to be so different that I can't even explain what I would do if a Frida Gilmore situation happened, because that would not happen. It could not happen.
Would you implement a sensitivity training for police officers for dealing with people who are having
Mentally ill.
mental? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I thought there was a policy for that. I thought they had training for that. Um, that policy wouldn't even that policy wouldn't even have really been in effect for Frida Gilmore.
She's developmentally delayed, right?
She's a little she's delayed just a little.
Hmm.
But my issue was from the jump, everyone else was the aggressor to the situation. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
That won't happen. When you see an officer under a Washington administration, you're going to feel like that's your friend, that's your best friend. Oh, what's up, officer such and such? You know what I'm saying? Hey, well, we got a call on you saying this, that, and the third. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be different. It should be different. Um, well, again, that's a misstep on the administration right now. But yes, trainings will be happening for the police department. Bias trainings, racial trainings, sensitivity trainings. They need to get trained for all types of stuff. Whatever's federally available when I'm in office, they will get trained for.
On July 5th, 2018, Niquay Little was beaten by three Charleston police officers at the Super 8 in Canal City. The cops responded to a disturbance complaint over Niquay and his girlfriend. Niquay was upset over the way the cops were treating his allegedly intoxicated, abusive girlfriend, and they beat him up to calm him down. Little settled with the city in September 2019 for $20,000. Niquay Little is black and deaf.
Mm-hmm.
What would you have done about this situation if you were Mayor of Charleston?
First things first, I would have apologized for not having a interpreter on the force or someone on call, so that even if a bystander is deaf mute, we have somebody readily available. Even if I have to take you to the car to the laptop to have somebody sign it right then and there. So I would have apologized to the family for not being equipped, prepared, or ready for that type of situation. Um, but I mean, sometimes when you're wrong, you're wrong. When you're wrong, you're wrong, and that's again what sets me different from if we're wrong as a city, we're wrong. And so I would have just the officers would have had to have either resigned or stepped down. I don't know about I don't because I'm not a police officer. I'm not sure how the policy goes for them, but that's just would have been the end of that. Sometimes you have to do what's right, even if it's not right by policy. You have to do what's right, and those officers would have had to have gone, and it would have had to been a full fledged investigation.
Do you think the settlement was fair? The Watch children got $100,000 for their beatdown by the CPD.
I'll just say this: if I'm settling for a number, it's going to be worth it. And you're going to have to admit fault, or you're going to have to admit fault because I'm going to fight you in court. If it was me,
Do you know Niquay?
I do.
And you're familiar with the situation?
Hmm. That's why I say when you're wrong, you're wrong. When you're not prepared, you are not prepared.
How will you bridge the racial divide in Charleston if you wind up the city's next mayor?
I think a lot of the racial divide is still with the police department. And I think once the head is correct, and that doesn't even mean a black person being mayor, but once the head of the police department understands and the rest of the force gets it, I don't think there will be a real racial divide in Charleston. There might still be a gender divide because women aren't getting paid as much as men, but there won't be a racial divide.
Alexandria, Richmond, St. Paul, Chicago, and Pittsburgh invested CARES Act money and American Rescue Plan Act money into universal basic income programs for residents with no income.
Mhm.
Before that, Stockton did a successful universal basic income program, and Pennsylvania had a general assistance program that once paid folks with no incomes $200 a month. They have since got rid of that. Do you support the city of Charleston creating a universal basic income pilot for Charlestonians with no income to help combat poverty?
If I was mayor and I still had enough CARES Act money, yes. But as a city right now, we're not making enough money for that to be feasible. The idea is amazing because I thought the mayor that we had now was going to do implement the program where they were paying trash men if you were homeless and you just wanted cash for that day. If you picked up trash or did some other basic work, they was paying $10 an hour. And I thought the city was going to pick that up, but they did not. But that's not feasible at this moment for Charleston. It is a wonderful idea, but it's
But
not
you wouldn't
feasible
be,
right now.
but you wouldn't be willing to raise the city tax 0.5% or something.
It wouldn't even be enough money to give people. I wouldn't disrespect people like that.
How will you
But
bring
but once if I'm elected, well, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to need 2 terms to turn around the amount of money that we make in the budget. But if it's feasible in the budget, oh, I will definitely have some sort of income based thing going for people with no income, for sure. We will definitely partner because like the city can partner with DHHR the same way they do the TNAFTA check and different checks for moms who don't have jobs who have children. You know what I'm saying? So there's ways to make it happen.
well, many of those programs like TANF, you
Hmm.
have to be a parent.
TANF,
That's a
yes.
thing. There's no some people don't qualify for a social security check, so that's it's kind of people. A lot of people are out in the cold here. Um,
More than enough people are out in the cold, and it's rather hard to see a whole family outside. It's just it's painful. We can do better for sure.
how will you make Charleston more commercially attractive as mayor
Well,
to bring business here?
we plan on having more events. Like I want to do drag racing on the boulevard. We want to bring like the tag competitions here. So I think by making Charleston a feature city using our civic center and increasing um, our population just in general, having people actually start buying homes here instead of renting or leaving the state, it'll attract people here. Plus, I'm going to make pleas to larger companies to come here because the plan is to increase our population. And if they want good money, I mean, people here pay good money to do good things. You know what I mean?
The average price of a two-bedroom fair market rent unit in Charleston is $833 a month. A one-bedroom unit is $690 a month. What will you do to deal with unaffordable housing as mayor?
I'm not sure um, how to not set a standard rent rate in Charleston. um, because living is living is sometimes unobtainable in our city. Our rates are a little bit high. But I would partner with landlords to see if we can't work things out in certain areas. But there's
What
not
about
too
rent
much I can
control?
do. There's not too much I can do without doing rent control. You know what I mean? So
Would you
I mean,
support rent control?
yes and no. Um, our city is almost at the right population for it, but we're just a little too large for it to happen, and we're too spread out. Because if I do rent control, people in South Hills are going to be mad that they're not getting the same prices as down here on the west side. The poverty levels are just a little too far. But what I would do was partner with like low income housing to see if we can't figure out a way to get people into housing and into homes at a lower rate. Like partnering with, like, what you do is you partner with the developers and the landlords because they want to buy all these cheap properties at tax time, but the city buys them. You partner with them and you're like, okay, so you can purchase this home or this property from the city for this rate, but here's a stipulation: you can't have a rent this high. Without rent, because without doing stuff like that, you would have to do rent control, and that's just a little bit. It's unobtainable for our area, only because there's just the difference in pricing in houses.
Will the East End ever get another grocery store?
Yes, even if I'm not mayor, yes. I plan. One thing I can promise is I will work with this city as hard as I can to get the East End grocery store. I think it's as simple as the city buying land and being like, "Hey, Kroger's, hey, whatever, we'll lease you this land, and if need be, build the property as long as you do what you got to do, operate day to day, do what you got to do.
How
Here's a
will you deal
30-year
with
agreement.
how will you deal with crime?
How I deal with crime? I'm going to be there. I'm going to hold people accountable. I mean, that's like I say, I'm with people. I'm with the people. I am the people. I live here. You know what I'm saying? People have died over here where I live. I was right there after KJ passed away. You know what I'm saying? I was steps away from when the two girls were shot over there on, I think it was Grant Street. I literally, it was a 20, 30-minute difference between the time of them getting shot and me being there. I'm out in the streets. So I'm going to encourage people not to do these things. And I'm going to hold people accountable because I know the people who are shooting. Well, I
Are
mean, I
you going to
really don't.
support?
I don't
Are you
know the
going to
people who are
support?
shooting, but I mean, they're in the community. So you going to know better.
Are you going to support or fund diversion programs for youth to keep them out of gangs and trouble?
Yes. But the city's going to, like, rec centers, I want to leave them open till 11 because I feel like the kids are going. I mean, the rec centers are closing at 9, and the kids are going from 9 till 2, 3 in the morning out here on the streets during the summer. Let's leave our rec centers open till 11 year round. So there's enough stuff in my plan to where I might not have to do specifically that, but I'm here for it.
What is your vision of Charleston as mayor?
My vision for Charleston as mayor would be for everybody around the country to know that Charleston, West Virginia exists. For people to not say, "Oh, you're close to Richmond," or "Oh, so how's the beach? You must go there all the time." That's my vision for Charleston. For Charleston to be able to stand on its own 2 feet without being dragged down by any bad or negative thing from West Virginia, and without being paired with Virginia.
If elected mayor, would you decriminalize sex work and tax it to help pay for road repairs and other pet projects of yours?
No, that's what OnlyFans is for. But I don't think that Charleston would be the place for that. We're not like a mecca center for that. We're more like a home type of place.
The politicians love him.
Now, listen, you ain't told a lie there, and that's why I don't say I'm a politician. I'm a people person.
Last year, the Charleston City Council passed a law that bans conversion therapy. It exempts religious clergy. Do you think it was stupid to exempt religious clergy since they are the main practitioners of conversion therapy?
I I don't even know why we had to pass that. Um, I just feel as if they should have included everyone. First things first, should have included everyone. But I want Charleston to be a place where we won't even have to have ordinances and laws like that. I just want it to be welcoming to everyone. If you have hate or if you want to change somebody because of the way they want to be, I don't. It's just I'm I'm just not here for it. But it should have included everyone. There should be no conversion therapy, regardless of who, what, or how you represent.
Do you think Charlestonians should be spending their time trying to pray the city's problems away or ringing their elected officials' phones off the hook, asking for sensible reforms to help out the little guy and gal in Charleston?
First things first, they should pray regardless. Pray regardless, but hold everyone elected accountable. Hold them accountable. Hold every elected official accountable, from the little guy to the big guy.
Are you concerned about the West Virginia legislature nixing the state's nuclear power plant ban? They want to help refurbish old coal fired power plants with smaller modular reactors, nuclear reactors. Um, the closest coal fired power plant to Charleston is like 25 miles away in
John Ennis.
Winfield. Yep. Does that concern you? That they may in the near future have a nuclear power plant hooked up to that?
I just don't understand why we are still trying to do things that could harm the environment or our communities. So one of my big pushes as mayor is going to be to make the city more green. We're going to get green vehicles for the city. We're going to try to revamp buildings with solar that we can. Try to offer a city rebate for, so if you convert your house to a solar. I, I I'm here for renewable energy. I can't even make a comment on nuclear because I'm here for renewable energy. But I don't want to cost anybody their job. But if we could convert or do something that would better work for our environment, I would love that. But I'm not here for the nuclear energy. Renewable is what I'm here for.
What would you like to say about your campaign that I didn't even touch on?
You know what? You didn't touch on abandoned homes. I think that we have enough city workers that I could create a demolition crew by a big excavator or whatever. I think it's called a backhoe, excavator, whatever. One of them big machines, and maybe two trucks. And I think we could go through the abandoned house list rather quickly. Um, because a house across the street from me has been caught on fire about 4 or 5 times. And I know it's happening on block after block after block. I hear the police sirens going. Um, that's a big
Would you
issue to me.
would you rather the city just fix these homes up to put homeless people in, or because squatters are the
Now
ones who are?
we're definitely going to have some transitional housing, and I don't think at this point in time the city could afford to fix homes. We have a little bit of money to play with, but there's not enough because there's so many homes. There's literally at least 1,000 just on the flats. I'm not even going to go on the hills. Um, I think there will be opportunities that the city could work with different organizations, programs. Like I said, the city should be making connections, and we don't really do that as a city. If I made a connection to, like, let's say Darrell's program, Keep Your Face Corp, and I was like, hey Darrell, I know you're training people to build homes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give these homes to you. Okay, you get you a grant, and I'm going to help you get the grant for $22,000. That'll be enough money to fix up this home. So I'm giving you this home. Then you got a grant from the state or from wherever to fix up the home. So now you can sell the home. That's going to also help you train more people to get them. You see what I'm saying? The city doesn't make those connections, and that's what we need to do. That's one good way we can help the homeless. get up out of these houses.
Should Martec Washington win the mayoral primary, he will face off with Republican Lance Wolf come November. If you are interested in running in the general election for Charleston Mayor or Charleston City Council as a Mountain Partier, Libertarian, Independent, or no party candidate, you have 70 days before the general election to file to run. The filing fee for City Council is $70. The filing fee for Mayor is $1,250. To learn more about Martec Washington and to reach out to him about where he stands on issues that we didn't touch base on, check out his website at tecformayor.com. That's tecformayor.com. I want to thank my special guest, Martec Washington. It's always nice seeing young people run for public office, especially with the worthless do-nothing we have currently serving as Mayor of Charleston. For Mothman and the Bible Belt podcast outlet updates, guest bios, and direct links to social media, please visit mothmanandthebiblebelt.com. Thanks for listening.